Anime is my life, and it's been a long, interesting journey. And I figured since we do have a Meet the Hosts podcast episode, we don't really have anything on our YouTube channel. So I figured I'd come on here and let you guys know my journey to getting to the point that I'm at. Like many people, I started off in anime not knowing what anime was. We watched the usual Saturday night cartoons, not even knowing they were actually what you would call anime. It wasn't until I was probably in my junior high years, maybe. I had a friend who had a lot of access to different types of imports. And a lot of the things that he would bring and we watched together was things like Tenchi Muyo, Akira, a lot of series like that where, like I said before, this was the point in which I finally realized this is actually Japanese animation. This is something not like the West. Because, Saturday night cartoons, the most violent things you had was a Looney Tunes character getting blown up. Whereas what I was watching was violence, it was nudity, it was all these grown-up things that, of course, me in my younger years was like, wow, this is edgy stuff. I would never be able to watch something like this. But it was that introduction into something that animation could be something so much more. Animation can be adult, animation could be serious, and it was something that immediately captivated me. I still to this day so vividly remember that moment in Akira where he's in the street and he screams and the windows shatter. And it was this point in which I fell in love with this art, this artistry that was known as anime. Unfortunately, at this period of time, as most would kind of note, the availability of anime was very difficult. About the only way that I could ever experience it was what my friend got, and that I would go over there on a regular basis, stay the night, and we would just watch anime. And this was something that it was a limiter, but it was also a great thing because it was at that time that you'd watch something over and over again. You'd watch Akira over and over again. You'd watch Evangelion over and over again. You'd watch Tenchi Muyo over and over again, to the point where we memorized all these phrases throughout the series. And while I did leave my friend, it stuck with me. I sought out people that had stuff. I sought out people that had any kind of desire to watch anime. And granted, it was more difficult as I got older to find those people, to find that bastion of hope. It was thankfully due to the internet that my love for the craft just took off. Of course, as we all know, we're not going to hide from this. This is the point in which we had torrents. We had the availability online to find these shows because, of course, they weren't licensed. We had this crash, and so the availability of things was getting more difficult, even on top of the fact that we just didn't have availability for us. It was limited, and what you did have available was 1 or 2 episodes on a VHS tape that was extremely expensive. But of course, the anime being available online through torrents was this boom. This availability that I hit all the major sites. I grabbed torrents on a weekly basis. I kept up on the shows based through that. Torrent was essentially my go-to. It was on a regular basis torrenting this stuff. And that was the point in which I got my first buy. This is the point in which I finally got my first job. And I went out and I bought my first anime. And that was Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now, granted, it wasn't my first because I believe I traded for a copy of, I think it was the Pretty Girl Sasami VHS tape. But no, this is the point in which I started buying like crazy. I bought my Evangelion set. I bought a DVD player. I bought a TV just to watch it. I had income, and I no longer was torrenting everything. I was buying what I could get, and it was very difficult to get it back then. Even still, a lot of it was mail order stuff, but it was my ability to get that stuff that was so exciting. I was finally able to have a collection. That's what started this collection thing. Was that point? That was the itch that was now scratched, that I would be going through and buying so much stuff. Now, granted, this was a point in which things kind of shifted again. I moved. I got kind of out of it. I got sort of into video games and kind of left anime behind. But it wasn't until my brother, Chris, the co-host of Otaku Spirit Anime Cast, really kind of pulled me back in. He was getting into Crunchyroll. He was getting into streaming stuff. And we decided at that point we were going to create a podcast and a website that was devoted to both video games and anime. And while he was consuming a lot of anime, I just didn't have the desire to get back into it again. Nothing really grabbed me quite yet. And I don't remember which show it was, but there was at some point which he was watching shows that I got that itch again. And it pulled me right back into it. I want to say it was Katana Gatari. It may have been something else. But something pulled me back into it, and that was the point in which we decided to make Otaku Spirit Anime Cast. We were like, we're going to get rid of our old podcast, our old website. We're going to focus strictly on anime. This is what people are wanting. This is what the drive is for. And that was the creation of Otaku Spirit Anime Cast. Essentially, what it was created by, and what Otaku Spirit was created by, essentially, was this desire that people had for a positive outlook on anime. And it was something that I seen as well. I seen that there was podcasts, there was YouTube videos, there was all these other sources, and there was a huge demand that people had for hyper criticism for the anime sphere. It was making fun of everything. It was tearing down all the anime, which, like we've said before, is perfectly fine. That's what you're looking for. Definitely go get it. And people that find success in doing that, congratulations. I'm perfectly fine with them doing that. It was just this quote that I heard at some point where if you don't have access to something, if something's not available, create it. And that's what started Otaku Spirit Anime Cast. It was, we wanted to make a positive outlook for anime. We wanted to go in there, and even if we didn't like the show, at least just give it a shot, look into it, find what was positive about it, let people know about it, and let them decide if it's something that they would like and it's something that they want to look into. And like I said, that's what created Otaku Spirit Anime Cast. And that was a turning point for me. That was a point in which I turned a very side hobby into a very strong hobby. I was still working on the side, I was still doing my job, but everything outside of that was anime. It was watching everything, giving every show a shot, informing people of what we find. And people loved it. People were absorbed in it. Our podcast took off. We were hitting thousands and thousands of unique viewers, or listeners rather. And that became this joy for me. This is this thing that I love so much. Yes, it was time consuming. Yes, it was difficult. But we were watching so many shows. We were catching so many shows that everybody was not seeing. And that was an exciting thing for me. It was finding those gems and letting people know. And then just having that feedback of somebody saying, thanks for letting me know about this show. I would have totally missed it. That brings me so much joy. So granted, you could say that it's a negative thing that I turned essentially a side hobby into something that was almost a job, but it was so rewarding that at the point that I got to here recently where I was between jobs and deciding either giving up anime entirely, giving up the podcast, giving up Otaku Spirit, or making it essentially my job, that notice of reward, that sense of accomplishment, that love for the anime and feeling the love of the anime from other people made me give the choice of, I want to make this thing my life. This is what I want to do. And I have a stash put aside. I will give it my all and decide at that point if this is something that can be supported, this is something that people love so much that they're willing to support it, I will make this my life. I will make this my job. I will make this my future. Anime. Covering it, letting people know about shows, giving my thoughts on it, informing people, and just loving anime. Just loving and celebrating anime. That was what essentially went from watching Saturday night cartoons that I didn't know was anime to it being my life and being my joy and being something that I love so much. I never thought the day that my friend popped in a VHS of Akira that I would be here today, but this is where I am at now. And I could not be more thrilled to essentially, hopefully, make what was started there my future and my job and my life. And I thank everybody so much for making this happen, for supporting us through our podcast, supporting us through Patreon, sharing and watching our YouTube channel, giving us the viewership that we need to build up to get to the point that we are now. I cannot express enough how much this is exciting, and I'm looking forward to the future for my love of anime and for you guys' love of anime. So that's my history of anime. Definitely not your usual. I was in college and we were trading copied VHS tapes, but it is my history of anime, and it is something that I still hold to this day is a journey that I'm so glad that I went through, and I'm glad to continue to go through it with you guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video to know where I came from and where I'm going, and I thank y'all for watching. As always, if you did like this video, please leave a comment down below. Let me know where you got into anime, who got you into it, where'd you start, where are you at now, and as always, if you have not already, please subscribe. It definitely does help us out, and I thank you all for watching, and y'all take care.